There's a lot of stuff to talk about today. I didn't hammer tariffs that much today because not that I don't care. And I'm going to tell you guys this right now. This is when tariffs will matter, when it affects you. We live in a day and age where it's easy to understand how does this affect me, not the nuance of whether or not China's doing this or we're doing that. And it's interesting because a lot of people are upset today because China cut off minerals. So minerals we need. So they're going to ban certain minerals, mining things that we need in this country for a lot of stuff, lithium batteries, things of that nature, which we didn't prepare for. But that being said, it'll affect you at some point in time and we'll feel it. And then that's when the politics of this will change to something much easier to understand rather than the nuance of 10% here, 2% there, 28% here, 3%. Because like anything, once you feel it, once you live through it, once you understand it, it becomes a different thing. But I do want to talk about something else. So last week, briefly on one of his podcasts with Chris Cuomo, Bill Maher talked about his dinner with Trump. And then over the weekend on his show on HBO, he talked about Trump in, not so much glowing terms, but human terms. And I've said this for years, and I'll continue to say it. Trump is two people. There is a character he plays for the world, for a lot of his base in front. Not that it's not genuine, he doesn't believe it, but there is a certain character. It's a little like anything where you put a little mustard on. When I do voiceovers or something, you put a little mustard on certain things. That is Trump. But Bill Maher and him having a dinner, I thought was great. We don't talk enough in this country. We talked about it last week. We're the exhaustive majority. You and I, we need to have more conversations with people on different sides of certain issues. And find the commonality and the things that bind us more than anything else. But I love this part. This is the end of his about 12-minute monologue talking about, Trump. He had Trump sign the 60 or so insults that they had on like Twitter and Truth, and he had Trump sign them. It was all printed out one big thing, and Trump signed it gracefully. He did those things. But I love the way that he ended this, and I just thought it was as real as it gets.
I've heard from a lot of people who really like that we're having this dinner. Not all, but a lot. And I said, same. A lot of people told me they loved it, but not all. And we agreed. The people who don't even want us to talk, we don't like you. Don't talk, as opposed to what? Writing the same editorial for the millionth time and making 25-hour speeches into the wind? Really? That's what liberals have? He takes the piss out of everybody else and we can hold ours? Okay, that's my report. You can hate me for it, but I'm not a liar. Trump was gracious and measured, and why he isn't that in other settings, I don't know, and I can't answer, and it's not my place to answer. I'm just telling you what I saw, and I wasn't high. Damn, missed opportunity.
He wasn't high. He was all of the things. Trump's a different character. He is brilliant at times. He is stubborn. He is all of the things that make him who he is. A once in a lifetime, lightning in a bottle politician that many will try to replicate and most will fail miserably at. Something about him. But there's something about him in the way that he is with people. And he's got a certain kind of thing that Bill Clinton had, that Reagan had, that a lot of the greats had in the world of politics, that being around them, they made you feel special. And it was not what you see a lot of times in front of the camera. And I love the fact that Bill went out there, and I think it's a wonderful thing. And I think we need more of that across the board. And I love the fact that we've got people, because think about this, Bill Maher, not a fan of Trump, the persona, They even talked about, look, you think I don't like some of the stuff you've done. You're wrong. As for the border, I don't think women should play in men's sports. He went on several things. He said that he supported the wokeness, the DEI. And unfortunately, we live in a time and a day and age where, you're either 100% with us or against us. There's no nuance, which is frustrating. But I think there was a little bit of that. And I thought that was awesome. The other side of it, too, and I thought this was interesting. So Bernie, Saturday night at Coachella. So he's at Coachella doing his Bernie thing. Hey, it's me, Bernie. And he's out there doing his thing. Same night. So California, Palm Springs, Coachella, right? It's all the things, it's all the bands where everybody's free Palestine and, the stuff that they do. No MAGA hats, none of that stuff out there. Other side of the country, same time, Miami, Florida, Trump at UFC. And I think it says a lot about how divided we are, but I think that was a perfect snapshot of where we are politically right now. And I bring that up because CNN had this wackadoo thing over the weekend, this extremist thing. And I'm not saying there's not extremists on both sides, but the slant from CNN is the only people that are extremists are people on the right. The left, it's just a small few people. But one of the people they had on was a woman who only dated extreme right-wingers.
They
And
speak
boy,
liberal,
she had a lot
they
to
have
say.
liberal friends, and then they go online, and they are a white supremacist.
This is Vera Papasova. She spent the last year dating far-right men in New York City for a story for Cosmopolitan magazine.
They're the most insecure men I've ever sat down with. It was really difficult to have some of these dates because they were so insecure, because they don't really know who they are and they don't know how to figure that out.
She said the men she dated got all their news and information from the so-called manosphere.
They did not listen to anything else. They're only listening to independent media, and they're only listening to men talking to men. They love the UFC guys. They love the MMA guys because those guys do what they can. They're modern gladiators. They're badass. One of these guys brought me to a political meeting.
And did they talk about politics?
Barely. They talked about, it was a bunch of men complaining about girlfriends and wives, regurgitating Andrew Tate type of advice about how to train your girlfriend, how to train your wife to be submissive. And so this group was supposed to be a political group, but they're talking about relationship problems. And the fact that that's what most of the time was spent on, you don't need to be a neo-Nazi. You need therapy. You have to incentivize someone to want to be better. You can't just say, let's make men better. The thing about these guys is their biggest support system is online, but that also is very isolating, and isolation is what breeds hatred. People have to really think about, do you have the capacity to talk to people that you don't agree with? Because that one nice conversation you might have might change someone's day enough to not have to seek out help in an online support group, which is actually a bunch of white supremacists using political beliefs as an excuse for how they feel.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there. Insane, first of all. I'm in this business, right? I talk to people on the left and the right. Today I get yelled at by a lot of people on the right. We'll get to why they yelled at me later. I get yelled at by people on the left. I searched out the extreme right wing, and they have liberal friends. Well, how do you know they're the extreme? Well, because they talk about Andrew Tate. I'm not a fan of Tate. You guys know that. I'm not going to rehash any of that crap. I don't think it's worth it. But this insane, I'm going to nitpick. I'm going to find these people in extreme incels in certain areas, and I'm going to go out with them with the pretense that maybe I like them. And then I'm going to write a story or tell a story about how horrible they are. Gee, that sounds like a swell thing to do. What do you even say at that point? You're a bitch, obviously, if that's the way you're going to act. I mean, are you going out with them for real, or are you going out with them to write a story? And yes, if they're neo-Nazis, they're bad people. We're not even trying to. I'm not even pretending that. Oh, some of them are one. I have no idea who did it. But what I do know is, you went there to find something about people. You went to the extremes to find. I can go to the extremes on any level, and I can find people that are, in most part, unhinged, sad, and lonely. Did you find somebody who is conservative in the middle? Maybe you had a conversation with them? Or is it, no, let's just go to the extremes? Because that's what you want to do. This was more about saying, look, everybody who's in the MAGA movement is like this, which is bullshit. You and I both know that. But it's par for the course for CNN. And when they were pimping the show last week, this was the funny thing that they talked about. Now, mind you, see all the stuff that is going on in our country at this moment in time. From the kill Elons to the kill Trumps to all these, unalive them to all that. I'm not even bullshit. I don't even care about that. To the threats, to the all of those things. See what's going on.
What we're looking at
and then
here
this is what this guy is saying.
When it comes to extremism in this country, I mean, the issue very much so is on the right, on the far right, from Charlottesville to January 6th. There isn't exactly an equivalent on the left in this moment. And as you can see there, as part of our doc, we actually were outside the DC jail on inauguration night when, of course, Trump began pardoning a lot of people who took part in the January 6th riot, and people began to be released.
That is the most insane thing. Are there people that are on the extremes that do bad things? Yeah. We did a poll last week about the fact that not just the extreme left, but the left identifying left. So, like, not the extreme uber progressive, but the identifying left is fine with violence as a means to an end. Is the extreme left is fine with, taking out people. It is nuts. Yet that's what you came up with. Just keep pulling that out again and again and again. And you wonder why nobody reads your stuff and watches your stuff. You wonder why independent media, she went after, they get their stuff from independent media. You wonder why independent media is growing. Because are they serving them stuff that they want to hear? Affirmation over information? Oh, absolutely. But are they judging them like you are? Are you preaching to them like you are? No, you're not interested in even having an honest discussion. You're just like, it's the right. It's all it is the right. Speaking of the right, Taylor Lorenz lives in TikTok and her go at it back and forth. She was on the show as well and talking about, Luigi Mangione. Remember, it's
to see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't have, we don't stand murderers of all sorts, and we give them Netflix shows. There's a huge disconnect between the narratives and angles that sort of mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels. And you see that in moments like this. And I can tell you, I saw the biggest audience growth that I've ever seen, because people were like, oh, some journalist is actually speaking to the anger that we feel.
The women who gather outside court in New York.
So you're going to see women especially that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems this morally good man, which is hard to find.
Yeah, I just realized women will literally date an assassin before they swipe right on me. That's where we are. I'm sure you wouldn't like to be compared to a Trump supporter, but some of how people cannot understand why people have sympathies for Mangione strikes me as the same as a lot of media not understanding why people support Trump.
I totally agree.
It's because a lot of people are just really, really desperate.
They want somebody to take on the system. They want somebody to tear down these barbaric establishment institutions.
Yeah, murder. No. Murder. And it's so dreamy. Again, if he's 400 pounds, if that guy had done it, there's nobody standing outside. Right? There isn't. So Mangione, the way they make it seem like is he is this guy who was wronged by the system, right? This wasn't a guy whose kid ended up getting sick and insurance denied him 1,000 times. This was a wealthy, more than upper middle class, well-to-do, all the things that is, that normally if he was on the right side, they'd be like, look at that white privilege. And he did what he did. And it's vile and disgusting, and it's cowardice, and it's the kind of stuff where, I mean, let's be real. This is the shit where if you were in the Wild West and you shot Billy the Kid in the back and you ran away like that, you would be a coward. They wouldn't celebrate you. They wouldn't. They arrested a guy again today near another healthcare facility in, I believe, Minnesota, Minneapolis, that they thought was suspicious. This is insane. You had a guy yesterday attack Shapiro's house, Josh Shapiro. Insane. Said he wanted to, first of all, he didn't just attack the governor's mansion. He tried to burn it down, and luckily he didn't. And Shapiro was pissed and angry, as he should be. But all that being said, you have people out there who are wackadoos. You have people out there who are extremists. You have people out there who think now through social media and all of this stuff, this is a great time to make some sort of bizarre name for yourself, and that's bullshit. And this is where we need to have a calming down of the conversation, to stop playing to the extremes and to talk to the country and each other as if we actually like our neighbors, even though we may not disagree with them. Oh my God, I disagree with you. I can like you. I have a lot of friends who are uber liberal, and I don't agree with a lot of their positions, but I love them to death. They're my friends, and politics and certain issues are only a small thing of what life is about. And we need to get back to that. But this, just again, and she tried to play it off to Taylor Lorenz, like, I didn't really, you guys take it and you run with it. And I don't cancel that. She's worried about canceled. She's been canceled a whole bunch. I'm not a cancel culture guy. I would never want you to cancel her. My issue has always been, though, don't tell me that you're sitting there in the middle of this going, well, I didn't really say it. You took it out of context. How many of these things you're on with Piers Morgan talking about? You've tweeted hundreds of things about Luigi and things like that in the past where you have some sort of support for it. Can I understand why people are pissed? The medical system, 100%. Should you go and shoot somebody? No. I think we recognize that. But look at the fame. Look at the love. Look at the Robin Hood-esque way that some people feel about him. And when it comes to women, let's be real. Wackadoos like Manson. Go look at the Menendez brothers. I know they may be getting out soon. Go look at Ted Bundy. Go look at Richard Ramirez, for God's sakes. There's something about that infamy that brings them. But there's a lot of fat ones. I don't know if John Wayne Gacy had a lot of love. I'm just putting that out there. And finally tonight, Bukele, the El Salvadorian president, was here today. And the big discussion about the MS-13 member or not member, father from Maryland, he doesn't like, apparently they don't like to call him that. I don't know, whatever that you want to call him. He was a person that they said, hey, this guy shouldn't have been on this list. He shouldn't have gone to El Salvador. And the Trump administration is like, we tried. We couldn't get him out. It's El Salvador. So Bukele, the president of El Salvador, in the White House.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to suggesting that I smuggle terrorists into the United States, right? It's always how can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States. I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you could release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into our
country. I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah,
they're sick. These are sick people.
CNN, super sick. I bring that up because, as I was talking on my shows today, it's not about the guy. Unless you're the guy and his family, then it's about him. I want to see what's going to happen with the Supreme Court. I may measure twice, sometimes 3 times, cut once person. Don't give them a reason to continue to come after and say, look what you're doing here. And what happens when because the Supreme Court, it was kind of vague, which was kick it down. Yes, you have the right to get people out of here, but you also have to listen to what the lower courts say. And the lower courts, and he was supposed to be deported, but not to El Salvador because politically he escaped there. And they said, yeah, you have the right, at least at this moment in time, to stay here as to escape what you saw as political prosecution in El Salvador. And his deportation, he had a notice to hold and the deport, but not to El Salvador. And they did it anyways. I want to see what happens in the coming days. And is Trump going to look at the Supreme Court and say, screw you, I'm going to do what I want? That's something I'm not interested in doing. At some point in time, we have to have, we don't have 3 co-equal branches of government. In truth, Congress was supposed to be a little bit more, but they've decided to be pretty much feckless and useless, and they don't do anything. So you have the Supreme Court and you have the executive branch. That's it. Again, not trying to be mean to Congress, but you're useless. The question should be, what happens if he decides, I don't want to do something that they said because, and when I was talking about this today, it doesn't matter for some people out there who live in the world of only Trump. Trump is right. And trust me, I want all the bad ones gone. If you want, I have yet to find even my friends on the left who are progressive is like, I don't want MS-13 members here. That's insane. But due process. Trump was never going to bring this guy back, even if Bukele said, yeah, we'll bring him back. He's like, I don't want him here, because that would have shown potentially that, look, they made me do something I didn't want to do, and now I've got to fess up to it. And he was never going to do that. Let's be 100% honest there. The question, though, is at some point in time, there is going to be we did it anyway moment, or he's going to listen and the left is going to have to shut up. I don't know what's going to happen. There are several other instances of, you've got the hairdresser guy that's over there. You've got the Venezuelan soccer person that is somewhere. I'm not quite sure. You've got a few other things that are all out there, not to, Mohammed Khalil and several others that are going to potentially get themselves to the Supreme Court. What does that look like? I don't know. But my question today, and it has been, is it's not about the singular case. It's about a reaction to the case when it comes to the administration and the Supreme Court. And that's what I want to see. And even when I was talking about it today, it's funny when a court, the Supreme Court, of which Trump has 3 of the justices that he appointed. When I was talking about today, I got a bunch of text messages from listeners who are like, well, the Supreme Court rogue. And I'm like, really? So if it goes for you, you're all about it. If it goes against you, it's rogue. Both sides do it. And it's frustrating as hell. So what happens if he goes against? I think that's a question that even people on the right are going to have to ask themselves. If you're going to eschew the Constitution and look at the Supreme Court and say, I can do what I want, that's not a great thing, because remember, you're not always going to be in charge. And what does that give the person coming in behind you if it's the other party now the impetus to go and do, we're going, well, they did it. Why shouldn't I do it? It's like the dire wolves we talked about last week. Yeah, I'm excited. We've got dire wolves, but even though they're not the perfect dire wolf, at what point do we go, okay, well, let's bring back woolly mammoth. This is the last one. And then the next one's like, well, we could bring back, brontosaurus. Like let's bring back something that doesn't eat meat. Somebody's going to always try to take the next step when given the opportunity. And I'm a big fan of the dire wolf. You guys know that. So what happens if Trump and the administration decide to go, hey, no, we think you're rogue and we're going to do what we want to do? That's going to be a very interesting question in the coming days and weeks. Is there going to be anybody in the administration that says, no, we're not going to do that? I think Trump will follow it. I think right now they have plausible deniability. Oh, the guy left. We sent him. We tried to get him back. I mean, he's an El Salvadorian citizen. So at some point, could we get him back? Yes. There's going to be the question, too, about, it is El Salvador. So, but we are paying for it. There's a lot of those questions that are out there that I think, are going to be answered, soon. But if they were to bring him back, then there is a question. Okay, well, if you brought him back, you bring everybody back. So I could see why you don't want to open up that can of worms, but there'll be another can of worms coming soon. And how the administration reacts to the court proceeding, in particular to immigration, which, by the way, Trump has dominated immigration extremely well. When you go and look at the numbers at the border, the lies that the Biden administration told about, I need this and I need this to get the border shut, was exactly that. It was a lie. You were never interested in shutting the border. That was never something you cared about doing. You welcomed people in here to the tens of millions over a 4-year period. And with a flick of a wrist, it ended almost immediately. That showed me what a liar you were. But you should have seen that in the second debate when he said, I'm going to, when Biden said in that second debate in the first run against Trump that, within the first 100 days, I'm going to make sure that I get a bill, onto the floor that says, here's a pathway to citizenship, et cetera. And I said, no, I'm sorry. You couldn't do that. And while he didn't do that, or at least didn't get a chance to do that way, he showed you it was wide open as can be. And they were never interested in shutting that thing. I think Trump has done an amazing job in that way. But it'll be interesting to see here, because so many of these things that the administration has done was meant to get to the Supreme Court, because you can't make a move until you know exactly what you can do. And so you try something, see what they say. The question is, will he become a habitual line stepper? And we're going to find that out. Follow along across all of my social media. At Chad Benson Show is your X, your Insta, the Facebook, and of course, YouTube. If you're watching it there, like and subscribe. We appreciate it. It really helps us out. Leave a comment and check us out. We're on 6 to 9 Pacific, 9 to noon Eastern. If you want to know where the show can be heard, go to chadbensonshow.com and you can grab the podcast there as well. You guys have a great rest